Hi everyone, I'm the plant propagator and welcome to my channel. Today I'm in the laboratory and what I want to show you today is 6 steps to successful deflasking of orchids. I do a lot of orchid deflasking and I've seen other people do it, and there's not, well, there is something to it. I was going to say there's nothing to it, but you got to follow. I got 6 steps. Actually, there's a few more than that, but there's 6 main steps for successful deflasking of orchids. So you have to pay attention to the orchids and what they're telling you. Similar to how they grow in your collection, you have to pay attention to the seedlings. And the seedlings they're a little smaller, so they're quieter when they speak to you and when they whisper to you and when they yell at you. But you have to pay attention to what they're telling you, and you've got to pay attention to the 6 steps that I'm going to share with you today. But if you do this, you'll get incredibly high survival rate for deflasking of orchids. My survival rate is greater than 95%. The orchids really will do well, and if you take these steps, you'll get good survival, and you'll be happy, and they'll be happy, and everyone will be happy. Well, anyway, let's get started on these different steps. So what I'm going to do, I have Orchids bark, which is the substrate, the medium that I prefer for deflasking of the orchids. And today I'm going to do, I think I got a couple of different ones that I'm going to do. This one needs it, I think, a little bit more. So this is one of my Cattleya hybrids, and this is actually named Julia's Smile. So this is one of my first hybrids that I made, and I named it after Plant Propagator Junior. So I'm pretty happy with this. I've got a lot of plants. They seem to be really vigorous, but I've got a lot of big plants in flasks that I need to deflask and get going. One of the things that I like to do is I like to get the orchids in these flasks. I like to get them big. I like to have big orchids and big root systems. And if you get the orchids big in flasks, they're going to survive really well. If you get little tiny orchids, if somebody sends you tiny flasked orchids, well, not my fault. That's their fault, and that's your fault for buying those and deflasking those. So you got to get the flasks that have big, healthy, nice looking orchids in the flask, and then you'll have high survival rate. The small ones and the babies that are pushed out the door too quickly, those just aren't going to work out well. All right, so I'll go through the 6 steps and I'll put them across the screen as I'm talking about them one at a time, and we'll go over things. So the first step is the medium, and again, I use, this is classic grade Orchids. So this is, you can see the size of it right here. And this comes in I buy them in 35-liter bags. You can get smaller amounts from really any supplier. You can get it from Amazon, a number of people. It's a little expensive, but it does work well. There may be something in the medium that, in addition, that the orchids will grab onto. There may be something in the medium that aids in the ability of the orchids to combat certain pathogens that are around. So this is not unusual, but Orchids, the plants stay good. You'll get less rot. It's a good potting mix. The first thing that I do is I get hot water, and I like to soak the bark for about a half hour, 15 minutes or half hour in hot water. And what it does is it hydrates the bark so that it's wet and it stays wet. Again, it's moist. It will be wet initially, but you want to really get this well hydrated, and you're going to use this bark, and it's a little mess because it sticks to your fingers and stuff, but you want to get this really wet, and you want to have it thoroughly hydrated as a starting potting mix. So the first thing, it's hot. So the first thing is to make this, to soak this in hot water. Okay, so, and what I do is I soak it. I said I soak it. I do soak it. So I want to make sure that the orchiata here is floating, and I want to keep on making certain that I push this down. See it here, that you push it down so that it is really thoroughly wet. And this is hot water that I'm soaking this stuff in, so it's really, the hot water, it really absorbs, it's absorbed by the orchiata a lot better than cold water, as you might imagine. Okay, so I'm going to let that go for about a half hour, and it'll be thoroughly hydrated, and then I'm going to pour off the water like as best as I can, like this. You don't want to get this down your drain. So I'll be back in a half hour to pour off this water, and the water level may go down a little bit because the orchiata will soak up a little bit of the water. Okay, so give me a half hour, and we'll come back and remove the water and start deflasking. Okay, and we are now back. So this has been soaking for a while, and what I'm going to try to do, we'll see how successful I am with this. So I hold my hand here and try to pour off the water without orchiata to go down the drain. I mean, the fastest way to a clogged drain is dump a bunch of orchiata down the drain. Look at that, it's working. Oh my gosh, but watch it. You got to be careful because you hold it up too high and then it's going to collapse. There has to be better ways to do this. I'm sure I could get a screen or something and put it at the bottom here and not get any bark in the drain. But what happens is, you can see it sticks to you a little bit, and this is just what happens. Okay, so again, the first step that we've completed is to soak the bark mix in hot water to thoroughly hydrate, and then of course you remove the water. So what you have is a really nicely uniformly moistened bark mix. The second step is to actually take these orchids out of the flasks, and this is the only thing that you need to be aware of when you do this is that this is a 100% humidity environment, and when you take the orchids out of there, you expose them to ambient air temperature, humidity, and they're a little sensitive, so you got to be careful that you don't damage these by the humidity change. This is a tag. This is my tag that I like to, that was on the flask, and you may not be able to see this, but this is the orchid. The name of the orchid is on there, and again, this is one of my hybrids that's called Julia's Smile. It's RTH Julia's Smile. So I pulled the cover off of this, and you have to be aware that these are now open and exposed, and you should be aware of that, but you don't need to freak out. You don't need to always make sure that some top is on for maintaining high humidity, but you need to just be aware of that as you go. In looking at these orchids, they look pretty good. They look okay. There's one here that has a brown leaf, and we'll remove that. It's not contaminated in any way. It's just for some reason it's not good, and we'll see how the plant itself looks, whether we keep it or toss it. But to pull these guys out, you just kind of gently pull them out, and you can see what happens is you have the medium. There's the flask, nothing in there. The medium is still attached, and then it just falls off. And there's just a little bit of residual medium that's on here. And you can work it off with your fingers. But what you have to do, and this is step number 2, is you want to make sure that all of this, which is the charcoal containing medium, is removed. So you want to rinse to thoroughly, completely remove the flasking medium. And so this is done here. I like to use not hot water, but warm water for this. And I'm going to adjust the camera so you can see it. Hands are wet. But what you do, you just simply wash all of this stuff off to get rid of the medium. And the reason that you want to make sure that the medium is completely removed is because the medium contains all the minerals and nutrients that the orchid has used to this point for survival. But what happens is that when you pull these orchids out of here, any residual medium is going to be a really rich medium and a great medium for fungal and bacterial growth. Okay, so we want to make sure that that is removed. And then what I'd like to do, not sure how well you can see this. See it there? Yeah. So then what I like to do is actually just pull these guys apart and individually make sure that the roots are appropriately rinsed. So here is one plant right here, and you know it's a decent plant, I think. But again, I gotta make sure it's a little too hot. Just want it warm. Make sure that the medium is rinsed off, and then I can actually put it back in the container that I just rinsed out. And again, I do this to kind of keep the humidity high in that environment. And then we have, well, there's some big plants, but what you have to do is you have to tease them apart. And I think there's 2 plants in, I can't tell if it's 2 or 1. Might just be 1 plant. That's a big one. Okay. That's a single plant. Okay, and here's the brown one, the one that has the brown leaf on it. And it looks like, I'm not sure if these are, yeah, they're 2 separate plants. I'm not sure I want to mess with that, so gone. And I'll just go through this and we'll accumulate them, and I'll speed it up on the replay. Okay, and I'm glad that I sped through that and took the sound off, because you would have heard some not nice words. One of these plants looked really beautiful, and I thought I could get 2 plants out of it. And so what I did is I took off, a beautiful new leaf. And oh no, that's not that one. It's this one. So no roots, beautiful new growth right here. And I remove that, and there's no roots. I can't do anything with that. And there's some of them that are small, and I'm gonna toss this. I kept this out because I wanted to show it to you, but look at the new growth coming out right here on this plant. So that looks really, that's pretty impressive right there. Anyway, so I think probably I have in here maybe around, I'm thinking 20 plants, 15, 20 plants, not that many. But what I did again is I separated them, and you got to separate them kind of carefully just to make sure that that everything's apart and everything is rinsed off. And then the third thing is that do not let your plants dry out. So right now I'm kind of holding them in this container. You can see there's a lot of moisture on it. It's pretty high humidity. They're babies, and you have to treat them like that, and you've got to really maintain them under very high humidity. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is pot these up. And the only thing, my number 4 clue, is plant at the right depth. And this shouldn't be really difficult to understand if you grow orchids. You can't plant them too deep or too shallow. But the thing is, the crown of the plant is where you want to have at the soil level. So you want to put it there, and the main reason is that that's the appropriate depth. But you also want to see the new roots growing out of the crown of the plant, and you'll see that over your acclimation period. So you'll see that over the 1 to 2 months that your orchids are going to sit in very high humidity conditions. And I'll show you some examples of what that looks like in just a few minutes. All right, so I'm going to reposition, and then we're going to plant these guys at the right depth. Okay, and we are repositioned, and we are back, and we're ready to go. So I'm at Orchiata right here. I have my container. I don't have a cover on top of it right now, but we're gonna try to work quickly and maintain very high humidity. The pots that I like to use for this are these 2-inch pots, and I just like doing them in individual pots like this. Again, when the survival rate is low, I like to put them in pots, and then each time you repot them, you don't disturb them. A lot of people like making community pots, but when you make community pots, the roots will just kind of grow into each other, and then you have to really rip them apart again in order to pot them up. Again, if you've been using this and you're successful using community pots, that's fine. I just really like using these small 2-inch pots. They work out well for me, and they're easy to work with. All right, so here is just an incredible, this is an incredible plant right here. So this one has, the main shoot, and then it has another shoot coming out of it. And there's a lot of roots, and it doesn't matter how many roots there are. You have to just kind of jam them down in the pot. You want to then position the plant in the middle of the pot. With seedlings, that's what you do. With mature plants, you want to put them at the side of the pot, and you want to have the growth, in the middle, and then plenty of room to run. But with these plants, I just put them in the middle of the pot, and then you want to fill the Orchiata up, but again, have your plant about at the right level, and again, I try to put it in the middle of the pot. I try to get the plants upright, and I just tap the medium down, and what you want is the crown of the plant right here, and this is wobbling a little bit, but it'll stabilize. The crown of the plant, which is again here, you want to have that exposed, and what you'll see is new roots growing out of the crown. Okay, so I'm going to just do a few quickly, and we'll see how it goes, because I got a few in here. Okay, so I'm done with that. I only got 16 plants. It's sad, and I actually planted some smaller ones that were a little bit smaller than I would have liked to. But even though I put this in fast motion, you should have been able to see the effort that I was putting into proper positioning of the orchids in in the pot. So it really is, for me, it's important to get the orchids in the pot just right. So I've got all of my orchids right here in this container. And I should also mention this container that I just get these at Walmart, and there's nothing to it, and the lid goes on it like this. But what I'm going to do is the next step is watering. So number 5 step is water and treat if you want after planting. And when I say treat, that means you can apply a fungicide treatment. And I like using a very dilute spray solution of Physan 20. So I'm going to go grab that right now, and we're going to water it first. I'm going to show you what's involved with that, and then I'm going to show you how I treat and spray with Physan 20. Okay, so here's the water, and I just use it. This is just a laboratory spray bottle, but you can do it any way that you want. So what I do is I just spray with water really well, so that there's actually excess that will come out. It's fine to use a lot of water in this step. You're not gonna, if these are in Orchiata, so unless they're sitting in a lot of water, you're not going to rot them. And it's fresh Orchiata, and it's fresh water, and tap water is fine. Okay, so I sprayed it, and I got extra, and it's kind of rolling around in there, and it's good that we have extra because I want to show you another point. But again, the watering is important, and you don't have to be careful not to hit the leaves. You want to hit everything. And then the other thing is that I use, again, Physan 20. There are various types of ways that you can treat these seedlings. Sometimes I don't do anything. I just, water is fine, and it's enough. I do like to hit them pretty well with this. Other people use other types of fungicides, and there are some people that I think is pretty clever to include certain mycorrhizal fungal inoculants on their deflast seedlings, which I think is really a smart thing to do. But I've never done it. I haven't needed to do it, so I've never done it. Okay, so again, the step 5 is to water and treat. If you like, with the Physan 20 or fungicide, and that's in parentheses because you can treat it or not. I'm not really sure how beneficial it is, but I always do it. Okay, so that's step 5. And so what you do then, after you do this, you cover this container. I'm sorry, before you do this, you label the container in some way. So I haven't done that now, but this is a tag as far as what the orchid is. You have to label the container as far as the deflasking date. With me, I have so many different containers, and they all need to be labeled as far as what the date of the deflasking was, and I just label the outside of the container. If you have different plants that are within the container, you should put all the different tags on all the different plants in the container. All right, so label them, but then cover this and put this under the right conditions. In my laboratory here, I have a good kind of a LED grow light setup, which is good. You don't want to put these in the sun, you'll cook them, but any kind of bright light is just fine. It shouldn't get too hot, it shouldn't get too cold. I have uniform conditions, about 80 82, 80 to 83 degrees, maybe 80. So uniform conditions. I use these grow light type LEDs in the laboratory in the culture room here under a 16-hour photo period. I don't think that's as important. Okay, step number 6 for this is actually something that's pretty important that I don't think that many people do. So these things will sit in here under very high humidity for a month or two. What you have to do is keep an eye on them, and you have to look at them, and you have to actually do things to them in order to get the really high survival rate. So weekly, well, you can look at them if they're at your place. You can look at them every few days. Sometimes I come to the laboratory, it's just weekly. So weekly, what I do is I take the top off, and I will take all of the, and this is this actually is a pipetter. So I will take all of the old, and I pipette up. All the liquid goes to the corner, and what happens sometimes is you get, over time, you'll get, and it's more algae than anything or other things, that you'll get things that are going to grow in here. And even just the orchiata will kind of make it look a little brown. Okay, so every week you go in here and pull off, remove the old stagnant water that's at the bottom of the container. Oop, and so look, that's how much extra I had, which was a lot. I did it just because I wanted to show you how to do this. All right, so every week you pull all that out, and then you hit same thing, you hit all the plants with fresh water. Okay, just like that, not much to it. You put the top of the container back on and store it for another week. What you have to do, so you have to watch this, and you have to see what's going on with these plants. And you need to remove, again, step 6 is to remove the water weekly, and add fresh tap water. You don't need to spray them with the Fizan every week. That's not a good idea. You can fertilize them every 3 to 4 weeks, a week fertilizer, but water's just fine. There's enough residual nutrients from the flasking medium that they shouldn't need to be fertilized. But if you want, a week fertilizer every 3 to 4 weeks is fine. And you let these guys sit in here for probably at least a month, maybe a month and a half, maybe 2 months. What do you look for? Is it a question of actually timing this and looking, okay, these are ready, the plant propagator says they're going to be ready in 1 month, 6 weeks, 2 months? No. What you have to do is you look at the plants. The plants will tell you, I said they're babies, you have to listen. They'll tell you when they're ready to be acclimated, and that is when your orchids, your babies, are putting on good root growth. And what I want to do is I'll take you in the culture room, and I'll show you some orchids that were deflasked, I think about 3 weeks ago. And I'll show you what good root growth looks like. Not all of the orchids will give you great root growth, but some of them will, and it's an indicator that they're doing well. And once you get good root growth, that again is a sign that these things are ready to be acclimated to ambient humidity. And what you do is over the course of another month, you take the lid and you gradually remove the lid until they're fully exposed to ambient humidity. If you live someplace where there's really high ambient humidity outside here in Southwest Florida, it can actually go right from here. It might not even need to go in this container. Sometimes it's so humid here. But sometimes, you can go directly from deflasking into outside if the humidity is high enough. But normally you let, what you do, and most people, again, you cover it let it go anywhere from 4 to 8 weeks and watch root growth. And then after you get sufficient root growth, again, not in each plant, but in overall, once you get good root growth, then it's ready to be slowly acclimated. It's good for all of this to have orchids like, good light and moderately high temperatures, so that'll help as well. All right, so let's take a look at what these guys look like close up. After a few weeks, where you can get an indicator of what the good root growth is like and why you need to plant these plants at the right level. Okay, so let's go take a look in the laboratory, in the culture room, at some of the orchids that were flasked a few weeks ago. Okay, so we're in the laboratory, and here are a couple of containers of deflasked orchids, and these were done, actually they were done 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago today. And what you can look at when we go, and these are done by some people who know orchids, but when you look in and there's a whole variety of different orchids in there, but you can see, I hope you can see in here, some of the incredible root growth that we have. All right, so if you look in here, these are cattleyas, but look at that nice root growth that's on the top. Again, the roots right there, and I'm sorry, the tags are getting in the way here. But there's just some really outstanding root growth on some of these guys. And there's a variety of different orchids that are in here. Sometimes it's not that easy to see. You're not going to see root growth on each one. So that one, there's a nice root there. You can't really see anything there. I can't see much because the tags are in the way. So there's a variety. I think that's a foul. It's one of my first Phalaenopsis that was deflasked. So, but they look pretty good. Moving over to this container right here. That was Jim's. This is Diane's container here. This is from the deflasking party that we had. I did want to show you, if you can see it. So this is a Prosthekia boothiana right here, and this was a big plant that she put. I don't know how she found it, but she did. Anyway, there's a whole variety of different plants that are in here. There's some Certipodiums. There's some. There was that Prosthekia. There's, so the Certipodiums, I think, are in the back there, and there's some more in the front. But, overall, you look around and you can see some decent root growth on many of these. But it's only been 3 weeks. So there's still a little way to go. And then what I do with these plants is I come in here every week and remove the water. I'm sorry, it keeps on going out of focus. I'll remove the water from here and then put fresh water in here. So I do that, and these plants are looking pretty good. I did want to show you one thing. So in the back, you can see there's brown on that leaf, and a lot of times what I'll do, it's not something that you need to be too alarmed about, and the plant's not totally infected. But what I'll do is sometimes I'll just cut off the brown part of the leaf and just toss it. If it is infected, which I doubt, there may be some other things that are going on here, I just get rid of that. Okay, so that's all I have for today. Again, the 6 steps for successful deflasking of orchids. Soak the bark mix in hot water to thoroughly hydrate. Rinse the plants, the deflasked plants, to completely eliminate the flasking medium. Do not let your plants dry out. They're babies. Plant these plants at the right depth, and hopefully here you can see what the right depth is, so that you can see the nice root growth, which is an indicator that they're ready to be acclimated. 5, water and treat if you like after planting. And then weekly, what I do is remove the standing water and water with fresh tap water. So in another, these guys are looking pretty good, so it's probably going to be another, I don't know, 1 to 3 weeks. I don't think I need to let these go the full 2 months. But again, the roots look good, so they can be acclimated. If the humidity were higher here, I would say put them out right now. But it's still, it's still winter. It's still very early February here in Southwest Florida, so it's a little bit drier and not very humid outside. So maybe another few weeks before they're ready to be slowly acclimated. Okay, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed this video on in detail how I successfully deflask orchids. If you liked what you saw and you want to keep on seeing my videos, it would help me out if you could click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. Okay, that's all I have for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and happy propagating.